Over the past 4 years, and in the face of unprecedented challenges, the more than 115,000 public servants who make up the Department of Justice have worked tirelessly to fulfill our mission, to uphold the rule of law, to keep our country safe, and to protect civil rights. Over the past 4 years, we have worked with our law enforcement and community partners across the country to drive down violent crime, seize deadly drugs, capture dangerous fugitives, and deter and disrupt threats to our national security. We have worked to protect the civil rights of everyone in our country, to combat discrimination, to defend federally protected reproductive rights, and to aggressively prosecute hate crimes. And in everything we have done, we have continued to fulfill our responsibility to uphold the rule of law and to ensure the equal protection of law that is the foundation of our democracy. On my first day in office, I promised that the Justice Department would pursue equal justice and adhere to the rule of law. We have worked to make that promise real. We have reaffirmed and strengthened the norms that safeguard the Justice Department's independence and integrity. Principal among those norms is that we treat like cases alike, that there is not one set of laws for the powerful and another for the powerless, not one for the rich and another for the poor, not one for Democrats and another for Republicans, or different rules depending upon one's race or ethnicity or religion. We follow the facts and the law. We do not tolerate improper influence of any kind, and we apply the law in a way that respects the Constitution. Our work to uphold the rule of law has also included protecting our country's democratic institutions and protecting those who serve the public from violence and threats of violence. Since the January 6, 2021 attack on the United States Capitol, the department has engaged in one of the most complex investigations in our history. We have charged more than 1,500 individuals and secured convictions for criminal conduct that occurred on January 6, as well as in the days and weeks leading up to the attack. Early in my tenure as Attorney General, I warned that Americans who serve and interact with the public at every level, many of whom make our democracy function, were being unlawfully targeted with threats of violence and actual violence. We have seen acts and threats of violence against public servants, including judges, members of Congress, police officers, federal law enforcement agents, prosecutors, and those who administer our elections. That is why, in just the past 2 years, we have prosecuted over 400 cases against those we allege unlawfully targeted public servants or their families with violence and threats of violence. 4 years ago, the Justice Department launched an ambitious strategy to combat the sharp spike in violent crime that occurred during the pandemic. We focused our efforts on enhancing the most powerful tool we have, our partnerships with federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial law enforcement agencies, and with the communities we all serve. We fortified those partnerships with substantial funding from our grant-making components to help police departments hire more officers, to support our law enforcement task forces, and to invest resources in initiatives aimed at preventing and disrupting violence before it occurs. We implemented the bipartisan Safer Communities Act and used its provisions to take illegal guns off the streets. We brought to bear our unique prosecutorial authorities and new technological tools that allowed us to zero in on the individuals and gangs responsible for the greatest violence. We went after the foreign cartels responsible for trafficking deadly fentanyl into our communities, and we brought their leaders to the United States to answer for their crimes. Today, we know that work is paying off. A recent report released by the FBI showed an historic drop in homicides in 2023 and one of the lowest levels of violent crime in 50 years. FBI data shows that trend has continued, as we saw further declines in violent crime in the first half of 2024 compared to the same time last year in 2023. And that trend is confirmed by similar reports from the Major City Chiefs Association. Recent public health data from the Centers for Disease Control also shows a 10.6% decrease in drug overdoses across the United States between April 2023 and April 2024. That decline represents thousands more people who are still alive today. We know that we still have much more work to do, but thanks to brave law enforcement officers, diligent prosecutors, dedicated community partners, we are turning the tide in the fight against violent crime. The many other threats facing our country are complex and wide in scope. We have worked with our partners across government and across the world to counter persistent domestic and foreign-based threats. Those include threats posed by nation-states, terrorist groups, radicalized individuals, and cybercriminals that endanger the safety of the American people and undermine our democratic and economic institutions. The Justice Department has also pursued a number of measures to ensure accountability for Russia's brutal and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, including by launching Task Force Kleptocapture and a War Crimes Accountability Team. And we have worked to protect the American people from economic harm. We have aggressively prosecuted the corporate crime that threatens our economic institutions. Over the past 4 years, we have held corporate executives criminally responsible and secured approximately $12 billion in criminal penalties from companies that engaged in white-collar offenses, including historic guilty pleas from TD Bank and Binance. And we have challenged some of the biggest corporations in the world over monopolistic conduct that violates the antitrust laws and hurts workers and consumers. Protecting civil rights was a founding purpose of the Justice Department in 1870, and it remains our urgent charge today. Over the past 4 years, the Justice Department has worked to strengthen and advance our essential work to protect the civil rights of everyone in our country. We have defended the reproductive freedoms that are protected by federal law against actions that infringe on those protections, including vigorously defending the FDA's expert judgment about the safety and efficacy of mifepristone. We have aggressively investigated, prosecuted, and disrupted the hate crimes that not only harm individuals, but strike fear across entire communities. Since January 2021, we have charged more than 140 defendants and secured more than 120 convictions for these heinous crimes. We have defended the right to vote, the cornerstone of our democracy. As part of that effort, we doubled the staff of the Civil Rights Division's voting section and filed lawsuits against discriminatory voting laws in multiple states. We have combated discriminatory housing practices throughout our groundbreaking Combating Redlining initiative, securing more than $150 million in relief for impacted communities of color across the country. We have worked to ensure constitutional policing and build trust between law enforcement officers and the communities they serve. And we have worked to ensure accountability for those officers who violated the civil rights of the people they were sworn to protect. We launched a department-wide comprehensive environmental justice strategy and created the department's first Office of Environmental Justice. We have made important strides in advancing that strategy and prioritizing the cases that have the greatest impact on the communities most burdened by environmental harm. The Justice Department has been able to accomplish all of these things only because of the career public servants who make up this institution. They do their work with dedication, integrity, and skill. Many of them put their lives on the line every single day to keep our country safe. During these last 4 years, I have seen them make our communities safer, advocate for victims, protect workers and consumers, defend civil rights, disrupt threats, and prevent tragedies. They have saved lives, and they have changed lives. I am more grateful than I can express to these public servants. Working alongside them has been an enormous honor.